Alright guys, we are ready for our fourth and final video on the immune system. And so what we're going to do, we're still on the third line of defense. And so we've already talked about the B cells. Just a reminder, those are what produce the antibodies. Now we're going to talk about the T cells. These are the ones that actually attack and kill whatever pathogen is there. So that's the cell mediated, because it's actually going from the cell and killing a cell. And so again, the antigen from that virus or bacteria, whatever pathogen it is, has to be presented by the macrophages, or those dendritic cells, to an immunocompetent T cell. And so again, immunocompetent means it's capable of responding to a specific antigens. So otherwise it'd be immature, it's not quite ready yet. These ones are sitting waiting in the thymus to see an antigen. As soon as that antigen comes, what it's going to be able to do is it can kill invaded cells by directly releasing poison, or it can promote the macrophages to come and eat them. And so you can see we have T cells, macrophages in here, it's presenting it, it becomes a T cell, and I don't know why it's showing it going into a B cell. So development, stage 1, it's developed in the bone marrow, and then it migrates to the thymus, so T cell for thymus, where it receives a specific protein marker for use for that one type of antigen. Again, it would be specific, so H1N1 or West Nile virus, something like that. Stage 2, the T cells migrate to the lymph nodes, liver, and spleen, where they just wait for that antigen. Sit there and wait for that one to come by. Once it gets it, it's going to invade the cell by doing two things. So it can drill a hole in that cell membrane, just to kind of reminder from freshman bio, cell membrane, that would have to be a bacteria cell because viruses don't have those, or it could be like a fungus or something, and release a poison to kill the invading cells. So we'll actually go in there and kill those invading cells. It can also release a substance that attracts those phagocytes to the area, so those macrophages. And so we have different types of T cells. One is the cytotoxic killer T cells, and they, who would have thought, kill infected cells. And they do that again by releasing a toxic chemical called perforin. There's also helper T cells. These are the ones that are recruiting other cells to fight the invaders. So they interact directly with those B cells, because remember, those B cells are bringing those antibodies, and so they help with them too. There's also lymphokines, which are actually, they're not a cell, they're a chemical that is released by T cells to mark the destruction of that antigen. So it'll spray it over there saying, hey, destroy this cell. I can't do it right now, but somebody else, macrophages, come over and destroy it. And this is just a picture showing that. So you have the macrophage presenting the antigen, the helper T cell who's like, hey, let's go in, and it's going to spray some chemicals to recruit these other killer T cells and these B cells. And so this is just an overall what's going on. So you have your humoral over here on the left and cellular over here on the right, which is really just B cells versus T cells. So first exposure, what's going to happen, it could, some of the antigens could go over and activate the B or T cells. A lot of times though, what happens is it's engulfed by a macrophage, which becomes a presenting cell, which is that dendritic cell. It goes into the helper T cell, who will then stimulate those B and T cells. So once the B and T cells are stimulated by that antigen, then they start going to gear. And so from there, the B cells will make those plasma cells, which release antibodies, and will make some memory cells so that they can remember that next attack. The T cells are going to give rise to those cytotoxic T cells, which are going to kill directly those cells, and of course make some memory cells. And then the helper T cells will also go into a memory T cell, which helps stimulate those memory cells. If this is the second time you've seen this, you get to go straight over to this part. Stimulates those memory cells, which can then make those an attack. And that's why it comes faster, which you usually don't get it. So like chicken pox, something like that, if it goes straight to here, it's going to be a pretty quick, we get rid of it. And then this just goes into how exactly I got it. And you actually have that entire diagram on your thing. The last part we need to talk about is some of the disorders. And so immunodeficiencies. So any kind of immune disorder is the function of immune cells or the complement, which was a chemical that is abnormal. This does include AIDS. And so AIDS is actually called acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And it's basically breaking down your immune system. And so any of these immunodeficiencies is when the immune system does not distinguish between itself and non-self. And like I've said, if I were ever to get it, this is what would go on with my blood, where my body wouldn't recognize my own red blood cells and would attack them. And so the body produces antibodies and sensitized T cells that attack its own tissues. So not a good thing. Anytime you see these autoimmune diseases, they're a lot of times very hard to control. So some examples are multiple sclerosis. So this actually goes with the nervous system. And what's happening is the white matter of your brain and spinal cord are being destroyed. And it's your own body attacking itself. And so you're kind of seeing somebody's spine as it starts degrading. Another one is myasthenia gravis. We actually talked about this winky eye during a neuromuscular disorder, and it's the communication between the nerves and skeletal muscles are not there anymore. It's again that neuromuscular junction, if you remember way back talking about muscular disorders. Another one is juvenile diabetes. So we talked about this with endocrine, and it's actually destroying your pancreatic beta cells that produce insulin. So a lot of those, your own body's destroying those cells. Rheumatoid arthritis, destroying the joints, so your own body going through and destroying that. Lupus, and lupus is just kind of a generic all over just attacking. That's why it's called systematic, because it says it affects the kidneys, heart, lung, and skin. That's kind of the bigger issues, but it's all over your immune system attacking your body. And that is the end of the PowerPoint. And so the end of your notes, you should have finished up 8 and 9. All you have left now is a review guide. And so you should be, if you have all this, pretty well set. The only other things are going to be the short answers. We're going to be doing some other comics and stuff on vaccinations and case studies that you will be needing to know as well. Alrighty.